involved with the president's legal challenges to these voting irregularities that we've been seeing in battleground states, especially in Pennsylvania. What can you tell us about those efforts?
Well, what I can tell you is that we've now expanded it to the state of Michigan, where the fraud seems to be equal to that in Pennsylvania, maybe even greater. In Michigan, the same things happened. The Republicans were excluded from the process of looking at the mail-in ballots. In Pennsylvania, it adds up to well over 600,000 ballots that were put in. No one ever got a chance to look at them in violation of Pennsylvania law. We have every reason to believe that they're fraudulent ballots. Otherwise, they would have allowed us to inspect them. They actually went so far as to put the Republicans in corrals like they were horses or something, and have them 30 feet away. When we tried to use binocular, they turned the people around. When we went to court and somebody could be closer, they moved them further away. I mean, this was like a deliberate effort to make sure that you didn't get to see any of these ballots. They even didn't let the Democrats see the ballots, because what happened to them in Detroit is amazing. In Detroit, one of the Democrats was so disgusted by what was going on, she basically turned state's evidence. I mean, she gave us a full affidavit about all the planning that was being done in Detroit, going well back to 4 weeks ago. I mean, when they first got this mail ballot thing through, they figured out how to cheat, and they were training their people on how to do it, coming up into the election. So she was trained on how to backdate. She was trained on how to not care about voter identification, even if it was wrong, ignore it. She was shown how you could take an unregistered voter, and then you could go to the voter registration list, and you could find somebody else who was dead or somebody that hadn't voted and put the vote in for them. Basically, never turned down a ballot coming from a big city where you have these Democrat machines where they vote, 8-1 or 8-2 for the Democrat. And then in Michigan, we had the 100,000 votes that came in the middle of the night. They were counted. Every witness available so far says that every single ballot of those 100,000 or so was for Biden, and that it was brought in specifically to make up for the big lead that President Trump had, and they didn't want him waking up in the morning with that big lead.
Exactly. And when it comes to this Democrat fraud machine, that plays out a lot in Philadelphia as well. There's been a lot of corruption in that city that you rightly pointed out. And over the weekend, you mentioned that you may have enough evidence to invalidate enough ballots that perhaps Pennsylvania may be able to be put back into the president's column. We know many news outlets have prematurely called the state for Biden, but you say that may change.
Well, yeah, and actually one of the news outlets now has made it a toss-up state. So Pennsylvania is moving back into the toss-up state column because I think they looked at the lawsuit and they see we have 600,000 illegal ballots in Pennsylvania. The law is set by the state legislature. The state legislature says you have to have those ballots inspected by a Republican and a Democrat. They weren't inspected by a Republican, and therefore they are null and void. They don't exist as ballots. You take them out, and Trump gets the actual victory that he won in Pennsylvania, which is a landslide. So I think Pennsylvania, sure, we're going to have to prove it in court and we're going to have to litigate it. But I think people who can read and spend time reading realize we've got 60 or 70 witnesses. This isn't a fly-by-night case. This is a very strong case, including some pictures and some video. So I think Pennsylvania, there's a good chance it'll get overturned. I think there's even a better chance in Michigan, because in Michigan, you have the same evidence of hundreds of thousands of votes that were counted without anybody observing them. Actually, in Michigan, it's a crime to do that. And then we have several pictures of ballots being brought in things that look like ash cans, little boxes, certainly not in the containers, the wooden containers that are supposed to be double locked that you bring legitimate ballots in with. And there we have a turncoat witness. I mean, we have a witness who's a Democrat who was so disgusted by what she saw in her party, she explains the whole thing to us.